let's get stuck straight into it. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is what we're going to be talking about, and we'll be talking about master reservations, what they are, a group allotment, which is an important component of reservations, how to email a quote for a master reservation, how to manage masters, and just at the end, we're going to talk about a few settings that you may or may not know about, which will help dealing with groups just a little bit easier. What is a master reservation? For many years, 30, 40 years, whatever it is, we've been calling them group bookings, but now we're calling them master reservations, and there's a strong reason for that. So a master reservation is just what you knew as a group reservation. It's when you want to manage multiple reservations in one place, just to keep all of that in a very nice tidy box. The reason for renaming group bookings to master reservations is so that we don't get confused with a group allotment. And as I said just previously, a group allotment is a component of master reservations, done in a slightly different way. And a group allotment is the ability for a property to negotiate with an event or a conference or a wedding, any sort of number of people, to hold a block of inventory for a specific group, travel agent, company, or event. And as I said, that might be a conference, it might be, some sort of work event, or it might be, let's say, a wedding. And what's going to happen in that situation, the organizer of that event is going to negotiate with the property for a certain number of rooms. They're going to agree on a rate. They're going to agree, importantly, on a release back date. So let's say we have an allotment of, 20 rooms, and over the course of time, 15 of those rooms are booked, but there's still 5 left. We can set a time when those remaining rooms will be released back to the property, who can be then sold to whoever. The allotments are normally taken up in one of two ways. Either individual attendees at the event, might make their booking individually, and they would contact the property and say, I'm, let's say with the Harry and Meghan wedding, I think we've got some rooms put aside. Yes, we have, and you'd have that certain rate, etc., etc. Or maybe the individual people talk to the organizer. This often happens in conferences where there's a key organizer who's running the event, who will manage that and talk directly to the property. But very importantly, and quite excitingly, we can now use a promo code in the RMS Internet Booking Engine, the IBE, formerly known as the Book Now button. Guests can be provided with a promo code, and when they go to make a booking in the IBE, they will only see those rooms' availability and rates for that particular event. So quite an important thing. Now, probably if group allotments are important to you, you're probably already using them. You probably know how to use them and are making the most out of them. I'm bringing this up today because a lot of people don't know about a group allotment, so I'm not going to do a deep dive on it. There are a couple of videos that I made a couple of years ago that are probably a little bit dated, but the concept is still the same. I'm going to share those links to those videos in the chat just a little bit later on. So if you want to go and find out a little bit more about group allotments, you can do that then. The next thing I want to talk about is, and over the 20 years I've been associated with RMS, I've traveled all around the world and visited various properties of all different types and sizes and shapes, and I've had thousands of conversations with lots of operators. And the thing that I see a lot is people getting companies and masters, or formerly groups, confused. So anytime you've got an individual who is staying with you but somebody else is paying the bill, it's not appropriate to use a master or a group. You should be using a company. I won't talk a lot about that today, but I will just show you what I'm talking about. Quite often when I'm talking about these things, I say, look, just do whatever works. If that's working for you, just keep doing that. In this particular one, no. If somebody else is paying the bill, you want to be able to manage the debtors and the accounts receivable and make sure everyone gets paid and that the payments get receipted, etc., etc. That's what companies are all about. So if you do have that situation, you need to learn about companies. The last thing I wanted to talk about is, before we get straight into it, some people say to me, look, do I really need to use master bookings at all? And the answer is, well, not if you don't want to. For instance, at our property, we have a lot of our business is based on multi-family groups. So we might have 5, 10, 15 families come to our place and spend the weekend. If they're all paying their own bill and, you know, there's nothing to organise, like, you know, we don't have to say, oh, everyone has to be here at a certain time, or, you know, one individual person is paying the bill, etc., etc. We don't even do a master reservation. We just treat them as individual reservations. So if you are in that boat, if you think, oh, you know, group bookings is just too hard, master reservations are, you know, just more complex than I need, you know, life's too short, don't do them if you don't think you need to. I just want to show you a couple of things we've just talked about then. So I'm just going to go into the reservations menu. This is a group allotment. It's found in the reservation group. I just happen to have one here I've prepared earlier. Let's go and have a look at it. Most of the heavy lifting is done in the allotments tab. You can see I've got one here. And I just want to quickly show you what it looks like. It's not complicated. It seems complicated. Let's say we've got an event and maybe it's between Monday the 10th and Thursday the 13th. We're going to fill in all of these details. You'll see I've got a release option there of days before release, and I've put a 7, so 7 days before the 10th of April, any unsold rooms will go back to the house. And you can see over on the right-hand side, I've said how many of each room type that I want for this particular allotment. Now, it's an important time to bring up the fact that there are two types of people in the world. There are the people that allocate a room at the time of the reservation, and in which case they typically use the booking chart. And there are those folks who don't. They allocate later on, sometimes right up to the time of check-in. You know, people are coming in saying, oh, you're right, I see you've got a booking here. Now I'm going to allocate a room for you. And typically they're going to use the availability chart. They don't care about the particular room, just how many rooms are available. I'm telling you that because with group allotments, really, you're not going to see those rooms on a booking chart. They're sort of a little bit invisible. If you're one of those folks who likes to allocate at the time, you know, probably group allotments aren't going to work for you. You can simply draw a multi-room reservation like that. The other one is that we've got here in reservations, we've got what is called Master Reservations, which is a grid that you can put together and simply just key in the number of rooms that you want for each different room type. Once again, this is something for the non-allocators, for the people who don't particularly want to pick a room at this particular time. But a lot of these are conveniences that are really an excuse for mediocrity. So I'm going to show you the correct way to start a master reservation. And that is done in the quick quote screen. You can see I've got an icon up there. If you don't, it's under reservations and quick quote. And this is your quick quote screen. Now, how you address this will depend a little bit on the makeup of the group itself. If let's say, you know, I need 10 rooms for maybe some contractors coming to do some work, I know there's going to be one person in each room, they're all coming at the same time, leaving at the same time, becomes very, very simple. All we'd need to do is put in some dates. Let's say they're coming on the 13th, leaving on the 16th. And if it was all very, very generic, we'd say, right, well, we want one person in each room, very, very simple. And then we would go and pick a rate type. Now you've got two drop downs here. You've got room type, and we could, if you wanted to, we could say, well, I'm going to choose my group booking from these particular room types. Chances are you've got something like a group rate, or you've negotiated a rate of some sort. So I would suggest that you're going to want to choose the rate type. There it is. And now we're going to get a quote. So what this is showing me now is the availability of all of the available rooms for that particular date range that are available using that particular rate type. And this particular screen can be manipulated so that it makes it a little bit easier to use. For instance, by clicking on the headers of each column, I could, for instance, turn this into alphabetical order. Maybe it's a large group and I need to know what my availability is. So maybe I could click on availability here and show the room types with the most availability at the top. Or maybe this is a money thing, a rate thing. Same deal, I can put my most expensive or my least expensive rooms at the top and work my way down. In this particular case, I'm going to use my budget rooms. So now you'll notice that when I hover over this particular room type, it's showing me the description. I'll just go down here. I've only got one description in there just to show you how that works. What this means, and I should explain that today I'm using the live system. I'm in the live environment, but very, very soon that's going to be updated. And in this screen, you're going to see some new features, and along the this area here, you're going to see a photo icon, and you'll be able to display photos for the room type and in fact the individual rooms themselves. What this means with these descriptions, which can be as detailed as you like, and images, you can make a booking with confidence, never having been to the property. So for those multi-property environments, or if you live off-site, whatever, and you're not familiar with each room type and each room, you would be able to quote with confidence and describe the particular room. If you go the next step and you use the attributes, so you can assign an attribute to each room and room type, you'd be able to speak with confidence about the inventory. But in this case, let's say we want some of these budget rooms. So I'm going to click on there, and you'll notice absolutely nothing happened. There's good reason for that. RMS is trying to optimize the screen so that you've got as much space, so it's as comfortable as possible. You'll see I've got a little arrow down here, or a chevron, I think it's technically called. If I click on that, it's now going to expose all of those budget rooms, all of the ones that are available to choose. Now, if we look over here on the right-hand side, and this gets back to the allocators and the non-allocators that we talked about a few minutes ago, if you're not allocating and say I want 5 rooms, I would simply put a 5 in that box, and it's just going to take 5 rooms out of availability. It's not going to pick specific ones. But in my case, I want to pick the ones I want. So I'm going to say, yeah, I want that one, that one, that one, and that one. And I'm going to add that to the reservation. So I'm going to hit the plus symbol there, and it's holding those in this group for me. One of the great things about that is, as you're talking to people, you can quote over the phone or live. You can say, well, look, this is what this is going to cost, and this is the total, rah, rah, rah. But now we might say, well, that was a situation where we've got 4 rooms with 1 person in each, but now we need some more rooms. So we're going to edit the quote. I'm up the top here. I'm going to edit the quote. Takes me back to where I was, but now I'm going to make a few changes. I'm going to say, well, I want some rooms now with 2 people, and who knows, maybe they're even going to stay a day longer. So I'm going to apply that, and now I'm going to hit get quote again. It's going to reload the availability with those conditions. So, more people, more dates, etc., etc. And let's say we're going to take, say, a couple of these. And we'll click on there. Here we go. We're clicking on that one now. And we're going to pick that one there. There we go, wonderful. And we're going to add that one as well. So now you can see I've built my group booking, and we can go backwards and forwards as many times as you like, and we can change those conditions. So if it was a really complex group booking, just keep going backwards and forwards and building. Now we're ready to go. We're going to hit the proceed button. And here we come to a master reservation. You can see it's different to a normal reservation for a couple of reasons. It's got a blue band around the edge, indicating it's a little bit different. And we have what is called the navigator. The navigator's down here showing us what rooms are in this booking. If you're a non-allocator, if you don't allocate at the time, that's not going to have room numbers. It's just going to say, I've got so many rooms of this type, so many rooms of that type. Before so I'll just finish off the master. So the master before I go into too much detail, the master that we're looking at here is, if you like, a cover sheet, a header, whatever you want to call it. There's no actual room, no actual area connected to this screen that you're looking at here. This is purely to retain the details of the organizer, if you like. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to book this out to Mr. Guest. He's going to be my organizer. There he is right there. And the only other thing I'm going to do is give it a name. Now, with group name, it's actually not essential. You don't have to have a group name. Most people do because they want to identify, you know, that these people are all attached to whatever. So I'm just going to call this one test 5. This is my test 5 booking. And now I'm going to save that. Now, if this was you at home, folks, you would have lots more information that would be mandatory. So you'd be looking for, you know, addresses and emails and all that sort of stuff. I haven't made all of those mandatory today just because it makes it a little bit quicker to go through the whole process. Now, before we get right into the depths of a group reservation, there's just a couple of things I want to, well, one main thing I want to show you. One of the big deals about master reservations, I think gets people down, is that, you know, you're getting all these calls all the time. And of course, some properties, it's all groups, that's all they do. And you get a lot of calls, don't always necessarily turn into bookings. So what do we want to do about that? We don't necessarily want to take up all of our availability with people who, you know, might be just tire kickers. So one of the things we can do is we can send a quote. So I've set up a little bit of an example. So I'm going to go into correspondence here, and I'm going to go to my emails. And I've made one here called a group quote letter, and let's open that. Now, you know, it's not a particularly attractive email, but it gives you the point. So I've put my logo up there and the details of the property, etc. And I've explained, look, this is your quote. You know, we spoke the other day on the phone, and these are the details of the quote. Now you can see I haven't had to do anything particularly clever to have this. It took me seconds to produce, and I can now email that to the organizer. And I've included a couple of merge fields. One of the merge fields is this very table that you're looking at. Another merge field is the total rate down here. So to quote for a group booking, you know, we've had that time on the phone, we've decided what sort of rooms we want, how many people there be, blah, blah, blah. And now seconds later, I'm sending off this quote letter. I would like to think that you would make a more attractive letter than I did, but there you go. Now I'm just going to quickly go into, because I think this is a really important thing. So let's just spend a couple of seconds talking about that. We're going to go into setup. We're going to go into correspondence, setup, correspondence, and form letters. Do I want to save that reservation? Yes, I do, because we'll come back to that in a moment. So here are my form letters. Here is the one that I made. I'm just going to show how we went about this. So I just, you know, put my logo and things like that. Here are all of my merge fields here, such as the name, address, town, state, and postcode of the guest, so that when we go to create this email, that's going to be automatically populated. I also used the group reservation number, but I've called it, when the guest is reading this, they see this as a quote number. So when the guest gets this and they say, oh, yeah, look, I'd really like to go ahead with that, they can call you, quote the group number, and I've actually asked them to quote the quote number there when they're making the booking or the inquiry, and you can go straight to that and bang, you're into it. So quite a handy thing to do. This table, let's just see where that came from. If we go down into reservations and we go all the way down, you'll see there's quite a few fields here referring to groups. It hasn't been updated to call masters yet, but you get the idea. So there's quite a few fields here you can use. I think the one I've used is this one here, group occupant room, and I just put in there. And simply how you do that, let's just put another one in so we can see what we're talking about. Let's click here where we want that table to be. There we go. And so now we've got a slightly different table in there. So what I would recommend if you want to do this is to go into your form letters, have a play around with the different fields, the different tables that you can use, and see which one is best for you. So that's how we quote for a master reservation. Let's talk a little bit more about this screen here. I'm going to go to one I set up earlier. There is my group reservation there. And here's the thing. You'll see that we've got our drop down here, which shows us what text we want to display in a reservation. If I want to change that, and if you do a lot of groups, you might want to change that to group. And you can see that I've got my test 1 booking down here. Let's click on that one for a moment. Just talking about quoting, and of course, you know, I could take dozens and dozens of master reservations. If they're never going to turn into bookings, that's going to take up a lot of availability. So the thing you might want to consider is opening up to a quote status. Now, if I change this to a quote status, this reservation will still be there. All of the details, all of the rooms, the rates, the organiser's name, all of that stuff is still going to be here, but it won't take up availability. So if those people never call back, no harm done. Just get on with your life. That might be something you might want to consider. Just bearing in mind that if you accidentally take a quote reservation, it's not going to show up. So, you know, you do have to take that into consideration as well. So let's talk more about this master reservation. So as I say, we can see the rooms that are connected to this reservation here in the navigator. The one thing about managing master reservations is just knowing where you are on the screen. Now, just like any other reservation, we've got all of these tabs down here, but these will relate to what we're showing in the navigator. So if I go to, say, room 2 here, do I want to save? Yes. Let's say I'm in room 2 here, then that's what we're going to see. If I go into correspondence, it's going to be the correspondence for room 2. If I'm back in the master, it's going to be the correspondence to every room in the group booking. There's a couple of other things that relate specifically to group bookings. One of those, and you'll see it over here, rate on master. It's funny, we had a comment about group bookings the other day on one of the webinars I did, saying that wouldn't it be great if the same account number was used for all of the siblings, for everyone in the group booking. Well, we don't do it that way in RMS, and I'll go through it. So we're saying here rate on master. So in other words, the charges for accommodation, are they going to appear on the master account or are they going to appear on the individual reservations? If I change that, it's currently at no, so that means that it's not going to appear here, it's going to appear on the individual reservations. So if I click on each of those, they'll be there. If I change this to yes, it's going to transfer all of the charges from the siblings, and they are now going to, and as you can see, so there's all the charges for the accommodation there. We can go and have a look at that if you like. I don't know why it keeps asking me that, but anyway, we'll bat on. And here are all the individual charges. So you can see room 3, room 2, and FO1, all of those charges are here. And I guess it's probably fair to say that in most cases, if you go into the trouble of having a master reservation, it's because somebody else is paying the bill, one central person is paying the bill. But what that does mean is that these individual people still have an account. So if they're buying extras or, you know, taking up services that you provide at your property, then they can be charged to their individual reservation on that account. So that's what that's all about. And that's why we don't just use one account number. A couple of other things, pause on master. Let's say that we've got an event and maybe we've got, you know, our staff at an event and they can charge their food and beverage charges to the group. Then you would say group on pause on master, yes. There's another one here, hide rate on correspondence. Could be handy if you don't want you know, staff members or siblings of the event to see what's being charged. Maybe you're the organizer of an event and you're charging one price, but you know, maybe that's not really what you're paying. So that's some of those individual things that you might like to see there. Okay, so let's just go through the various tabs now. So one way that you would be able to update the individual siblings, that you could literally just go, here I am in the master, and I can literally just go to each of these siblings, that's what we call the sub bookings, the siblings, and simply just update those. And you can see I've already put the clients in here. Same deal with number 3. So you could literally just go through and once you get the details of their addresses and their email addresses and phone numbers and all that sort of stuff, you can just type that in at your leisure. Okay, but let's just go back to the master. And this is sort of what I'm talking about. When you're using master reservations, you just got to keep being aware of where you are. And it's this navigator that can throw people out. So if you're doing something that relates to the group, be in the master. If you're doing something that relates to a single reservation, go to that particular room. But let's go to the room tab now. There's quite a few things we can do here. Let's go through them. So these are all the rooms that are connected to this booking. You'll see I've got one here, which is import CSV. What you can now do, let's say for a larger group, if you didn't, what we typically do with master bookings is we ask the organisers to send us an email with all of the details, so names, addresses, phone numbers, which room you want them to be in, how many people, blah, blah, blah. And most people are happy to do that. What you can do is you can create, and I'll show you how to do this in just a moment, you can create a CSV file, effectively an Excel, Microsoft Excel file, which you can send to the group organizer, and they can simply just type in the first name and the last name of everyone who's coming and assign it to the room that they want them to be in. They can send that back to you, and you can see you can then import that CSV file, and it's going to populate all of the names of the individual reservations. I'm just going to check a couple of these. So I'm checking 2 out of the 3 rooms of this booking, and I'm going to this update siblings one. And you'll see there are 3 here. Don't worry too much about the master revenue at the top. That's for a specific property. We might want to add a requirement, a to-do, and maybe we want to add that to one, some, or all of the reservations. We might want to change the rate. So I'll just click on that to show you how we do that. So we can manually change the rate. Let's say you've got 10 people looking for a budget room, but you've only got 8 budget rooms. So you might say, well, I'm going to put the last 2 in a deluxe room, but I'm going to charge them the same price. You could make that update here if you wanted to. What else have we got? POS on master. So you might say, well, some of these people can charge their food and beverage charges to the master, some can't. So this is where you would select that. And rate on master. Now, this is quite important. Let's go back to the scenario where it's a wedding, and let's say, I'm the father of the bride, and I'm paying for everything, and I'm saying, well, I've put together this master reservation, and I'm happy to pay for, the bride and the groom and mum and dad and whoever, but maybe all of these other people, maybe I don't want to pay for them. So you'd be able to say, well, these rooms here, yes, I want their accommodation charges to go on the master reservation, but if it's not checked, no, they can pay their own. So that's a relatively new feature and quite an important one. We could add another room here. Let's say we thought, oh no, we need another couple of rooms. That simply opens up the quick quote screen, and we just go through the same process we went before to add some more rooms. Our 3 dots here, lots of things we can do here. We can do an auto allocate, and to be honest, unless you had like a 100-room reservation, like I think you would just go through and make sure you were allocating the correct room to the correct guest. But if you want to use auto allocate, it will do that. You might like to edit the master, and then there's just a few little tables here. I think a lot of these have been put in for individual customers, but might be of interest to you. Definitely recommend that you go through these. I can use this one, remove from master. Let's say I've got more rooms than I need. I want to get rid of some. I can just highlight the ones I want to get rid of and then remove from master. I can add an existing reservation. So and this happens all the time. Let's say somebody's gone and made a group reservation, but Bernie, he didn't know we were making group reservations, so he's made his own, but we really want him to be a part of the group. This is where you would be able to add an existing reservation, and typically you would just use the reservation number. Go and find it, the reservation number of the odd booking, use that here, and that will be incorporated then into the group. You can send a beautiful little pro forma invoice to the group from here. This is it's just a really nice, stylish, very, very neat invoice. We can create a room list, and we talked about the CSV file before. This is where we would send that CSV file. So we could send that to the organizer. They would then diligently type away all the names and bring that back. But you can also print or email a room list. What else have we got left here? Bulk cancel. So let's say, I've got 100 rooms and I want to get rid of 10 of them. I can do the bulk cancel here. And I've just got a nice little table here with my room type totals, you know, generally it's going to be a pretty big group booking before you're sort of going to need that. That's okay. Let's go down next to the next one now, to the guests. Once again, I'm still in master, so I'm seeing every guest at the moment. Let's say I wanted to go to room 3, and it's going to show me now. In this particular case, I've got actually 3 guests staying in this one room, and I've recorded them all. I've got all of the details of these guests. There's a couple of things I can do here. For example, I can set one as the primary. At the moment, I've got Grant Green as the primary guest. He's the one we're talking to, but maybe, you know, maybe it's Peter Purple that I want to make the primary guest. So I'm going to set him as the primary. A few other things that we can, I'm just going to go back to master again. Here we are in master. So we can do a quick add. So once again, let's say, you know, they sent us the email and they said, well, look, here are the names of all the people. We could very, very quickly type those in, surname given, etc., etc. So very nice and easy way to add those in. What else? We could go to the account. Okay, so we talked before about the master account, which is, you know, we can put all the charges in there. We can also put additional charges on the individual reservation account, or we can put charges on the account of the guest. So there's 3 opportunities there for just depending on, you know, what they're paying for and whose responsibility it is. This one here, I'm sort of going backwards, but that's okay. We've got replace here. Now, this is a very important thing to remember. So let's just go back into the reservation. So I was still in master, but here we are on reservation. Now I'm going to go to room 2. Let's say I've just looked at that and I thought, well, hang on. This room here, I've got Penny Pink, and this is with every reservation, but particularly important for group or master reservations. And people do sometimes make a mistake here. If I want to change that person, I don't just go in here and start editing this, because this is going to edit that guest record for every reservation they've ever had now or in the future. What we want to do is replace guests. So I'm going to hit that one there, and then we're going to put in a new guest now, which will replace that without doing any damage to the existing guest record. All right, a couple of other things to understand about group reservations. When we are in the master and we make some big changes, like for instance, I might change that to Friday because maybe they want to stay a little bit longer, up will pop up this little modal, which will say, well, hang on, you've just changed the master. Which one of the individual reservations do you want this to apply to? And in this case, we might say, well, everyone. And that's also applicable to requirements and also applicable to res notes. We're going to recalculate. Yes, we want to recalculate because they're staying longer. And away we go. All right, so we've gone through all that. Now, a couple of settings that I want to show you that relate to guest reservations. Now, at the moment, so let's just let's go back here. So we've got test 1 here. I'm just going to change the names, and I'm going to change it back to name. So we've got Mr. Pink and Mr. Purple. If you're always dealing with the organisers and you don't really care about the siblings, and that can happen if you're in a city hotel and there's a tour group coming through and there's 50 people staying. They come from another country, they're never coming back. You're not really invested in who they are. You're not going to market to them or anything like that. You're probably only talking to the organiser. In which case, every time you go into this reservation, you want this to happen. Click on this group booking, and you'll see it's gone directly to the master. Now that's convenient in the situation I just outlined, but if you do want to create a relationship with every sibling, that might not suit you. And if Mr. Pink has called you and you want to talk to Mr. Pink, then when you click on Mr. Pink, you want that to open up to that particular guest. So I'm just explaining that, and now I'm going to show you. I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to show you a couple of settings. So I'm going to setup. I'm going all the way down to property options, and I'm going to general information. There are a couple of tabs here we need to look at. The first one is guest options, which is just here, might be client options in your one here. And the one that we're worried about here is, I'm just going to get this right, if master sibling or secondary client supplied, ignore mandatory fields. You can see this one here. So what that's talking about is, and let's say I am making a reservation for 10, 20, 30, 50 rooms, and typically I've got lots of mandatory fields marked like name, address, email, just goes on and on and on. If I don't ignore the mandatory fields, it's going to take 45 minutes to fill out that reservation. It might suit you to ignore the mandatory fields. The second one is need guests in each site. Now, that's this one here. I haven't got it turned on. What that means is that when you make a master reservation, you have to put a guest name against every sibling. Now, you'll notice I didn't do that. Completely up to you. Just depends on how important that is. The next tab we need to look at here is reservation options. And this is the one that I was talking to before. Go to master reservation on reservation. So if you want to always talk to the organisers, then you want this checked. If you'd prefer to go to the individual sibling, when you click on a sibling or when you search for a sibling's name, then you would want to take the check mark out of there. Now, Ash, I don't know if you're still with me. I hope you are, but that's pretty much all I wanted to say about group reservations, and hoping maybe there's some questions.
That was great. Thanks, Dave. I was busy listening and responding to questions. So thank you everyone who was dropping in a question in the chat. We're still working on getting to a couple of those. So I guess the general gist that I'm getting from a few of the questions is, the change of naming convention and how they kind of like have, oops, we got some more questions, sorry. Wait, you guys, please drop any questions you have in right now if you'd like me to get those answered by Dave. We've got one here. Can you do rate on master for a specific sibling for only one night of a 2-night stay?
It might be a bridge too far. So I'll just go back into the answer is yes and no. Is that sibling staying for the full duration, but you only want to charge it to the master for one of the days that they stay?
Yeah. So to repeat it, can you do rate on master for a specific sibling for only one night of a 2-night stay?
Yeah, no, the answer to that one is sort of no. So what you'd have to do in that situation, remember when we were adding rooms, so I'll just go into the room tab a little. You can do it, it's just tiny little bit messy, and we're going to add another room. We'd probably have 2 reservations for that person. So we'd book them in for one day, and it would be where they'd be paying their own, and on the second day it would be a separate reservation. And in that one, remember when we went through and we said rate on group, yeah, so what we would do, we would have the rate on group just for that reservation. I'm doing a shocking job of explaining this, but what I'm saying is for this date range, you would have broken into 2 reservations. One would be rate on group, yes, and one would be rate on group, no. Does that help at all? So for instance, this one would be rate on master, yes, and for the second reservation, which is effectively the second date, no. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just checking in with Susanna now. Okay, so let me just find another one in here. Okay, so is there any difference making the group with going into reservations -- master reservations versus the quick quote process?
Yeah, well, I strongly recommend that you use the quick quote presser. So just going back here, I think you're asking about reservations, master reservations, this one here. For a start, this one's really only relevant to people who don't allocate rooms. So that's half the population gone. And it really, it's just a sort of a mediocre way of doing it. I think you're far better off to go into the quick quote. There are just so many more features in the quick quote that you can take advantage of as you get comfortable with it. I'm just going to quickly go into it again just for a moment, just to show you some of these things we didn't talk about. Let's just go here. So there are so many things in the quick quote screen, and as you get better, for instance, these descriptions and how many are available and how many you're going to book and how much is it for the first night and what's the average rate, rah, rah, rah. And then when you choose one, you know, you can get down to this level where you can say, well, I want the one that's had the least number of bookings over the last 28 days and stuff like that. So yeah, this is a great screen, and you know, we could do a whole webinar. We could do a 3-hour show on the quick quote screen alone. There's so many features in there. So yeah, I would definitely get used to quick quote. That's how I would do a group master reservation.
Nice. We have so many questions that have just come through, so we won't be able to answer them all. However, I will endeavour to send those out with some more links to our resources online that can help everyone. So watch out for our follow-up email in the next couple of days that will have this live recording for you to watch as well on demand. And yeah, with a whole heap of resources for you to check in on. And if anyone has any further questions, please reach out to support. They'll be more than happy to help. But yeah, that was great, Dave. I think that was a really good introductory to understanding group bookings, reservations, master reservations, sorry.
No worries, that's fantastic. Thanks, Ash, thanks for your help, and thanks to the folks that come along. And don't hesitate to you know, leave us some messages on the sort of topics you'd like us to cover and different questions that you might have, and we can do other webinars as we go along on those subjects.
Yeah, definitely. And we also have a survey if anyone could take a moment to answer that in our email we'll send out as well. We'd love your feedback and how we can improve for the future. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.